So welcome up to Melon Griffiths. This is Forest Farm, and that bit of water I showed you there with the dock on. It used to be the Glamorganshire Canal. In fact, the restored bit, or the preserved bit, this is where it ends. And it drains into another bit of water, which will feature in our story in a little while. And let me explain to you why I'm here, and why I've just dipped off for a bit from doing the Cardiff Railway stories for this very quick short. I was at a talk recently, Friends of Cathay Cemetery, and I bumped into a couple of people who are also storytellers. Tony Lloyd is from Diplomat's Facebook page, but also does walking tours around Cardiff. And then Robert Guy is from Cardiff Yesterday and Today Facebook group. And Robert asked me if I knew what the gates were up here at Forest Farm, near the Glamorganshire Canal, and alongside what was Melon Griffiths Tin Works. So let me explain a little bit to you about some of the history of this area. In 1750, a tin plating works was established at Melon Griffiths, and at the same time they built a tramway, an L-shaped tramway, to an ironworks at Penturk, which the company also owned. Now, I featured that in a previous video, and it got converted into a railway in 1871 and was extended slightly onwards to connect to the Taff Vale Railway. But it went over a bridge over the River Taff and crossed at an angle over the Taff Vale lines. The tin plate works continued for some considerable amount of time, right through to the 1950s, and it needed water, which is why not only do we have the canal, but alongside it is this stretch of water, which is the Melon Griffiths feeder. That comes off at Rhadder Weir. Rhadder Weir was built so that water could be backed up and then diverted down the feeder, and it did so a little bit further upstream. Notice, by the way, they're knitting on the other side of the road. This is the other side of the river, I should say. This is the Taff Vale Railway as was, the Core Valley lines as is now, with the electrification heading up towards Pontypridd. So this is the top of the weir, and swing round here and you will see a channel and some sluice gates opening up into the Melon Griffiths feeder. On the other side of the sluice gates, the water comes under what is now a path and disappears off further down, heading towards where the tin plate works would have been. So we switch on to the maps. You can see here is the tin plate works, here is the feeder, here's the canal, and here's the River Taff. And the tin plate works are kind of squeezed between them. And there is the railway heading off towards Penturk with some sidings. So I went to find the gates, and they are alongside the road at this point here. And here we are in the open, alongside what looks like an electricity substation, are what can only be described as level crossing gates. I mean, these are old, they have sunk, but I would say we'd all agree they are level crossing gates. But that's not the end of the story, because if there's a level crossing gate here, then surely there must be something over there. Yeah, there's a pile of ivy. Until we get up a little bit closer, and there behind that pile of ivy there is metal. So there is another, there's a kind of circle there, and there is another set of gates on the other side of the road. And then the mystery started. The gates are there, there's no two ways about it, and I defy anybody to tell me that they're not railway gates. They're just the circle in the middle, they scream railway gates, and they're certainly not modern. So I started looking at the maps, and this is where I made a big mistake. Around here, if you want to find an old tramway or a cableway or something, you go back to the 1800s. And thanks to the National Library of Scotland, we can do just that. They've got a fantastic resource of library of maps, and I'm able to go right back. But when I go back to the 1860s, the 1880s, right into the 1900s, there is absolutely nothing. There's the works, there's the railway, there's the canal and the feeder, but there's nothing crossing the road. So this is a little bit baffling, because what was it? Were they built there for some other reason? Was there some non-rail reason that they were there? So what I then did was thought, well, let's look a little bit more modern. And by modern, I mean in comparison to when the railways were built. And hit a map from 1947. And again, nothing. And it wasn't until I looked on the aerial photographs of the 1950s, I suddenly saw this. Now these aren't very good. They're indicative. They're not brilliant. But you can see there's something there that's not on the maps. And fast forward to 1964, and there is a works and a line coming up from the Mellon Griffiths tinplate works and from the sidings of them. Now this is a little baffling because the tinplate works closed in 1957. So when was this factory built? What was it and what was it for? And that is where I started drawing a few blanks and had to reach out and get some help. And so the Facebook groups came good, and they came back with all sorts of information. You see, it was apparently built in the Second World War to make American half-track vehicles for the Army, for the US Army. And somebody has said they saw convoys of these going up a local road. Other people have said they came out on the railway and through the Penturk Railway, which then would have linked up with the sidings up more towards Penturk. After the war, it became a fire extinguisher factory. It was owned at one time by GKN Sankey, and then latterly in the 80s right through to the year 2000, it was Alloy Wheels International who made, well, alloy wheels. It closed in 2000 and was demolished. And in actual fact, someone who worked at the factory said that the blackout blinds were still there. Blackout shutters, automated shutters, were still there right up to the day the factory closed. Today this part of the world is a leafy suburb of Cardiff. There's chickens over there. Houses have been built on the factory and on the tinplate works, and these gates are just going to remain. It is good to see another relic of the Penturk and Mellon Griffiths Railway, however, even if they could do with some red oxide on them. So before I finish the video, another quick look at the canal. Peaceful, ducks on it. At one time there would have been barges coming down here full of coal heading for the docks in Cardiff, and today it's just a nice bit of peace and quiet. So thank you for watching. Are these crossing gates? Yes. Was there a railway line here? Absolutely. Back out and about doing more stuff soon, but until next time.